Tonight, a question that cut through the noise of Washington. A question that refused to be ignored. If the mission is to go after criminals, why are children the ones behind bars? In a heated exchange that is now rippling across the country, Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett demanded clarity, accountability, and humanity from officials defending America's immigration enforcement policies. And what followed was not just politics. It was a collision between law, morality, and the lives of families caught in the system. Set the scene. The hearing room was tense, rows of lawmakers, cameras fixed, staff whispering behind computer screens, the kind of setting where words are measured carefully. But Crockett did not arrive to whisper. She came armed with files, reports, and a growing frustration shared by many Americans who say the promise of targeting dangerous criminals is not matching the reality they're seeing. Because in detention centers across the country, children are still there waiting. Crockett leaned forward, her voice steady but sharp. She reminded officials of the repeated public commitment. Immigration crackdowns are meant to prioritize violent offenders and national security threats. So she asked the obvious follow-up. If that's true, why are minors being detained? Why are families reporting separations? Why are children sleeping in government facilities at all? Her question hung in the air longer than anyone seemed comfortable with for years. Administrations from both parties have insisted that enforcement resources should focus first on people who pose real danger. But immigration systems are complicated. Rest categories blur, local coordination varies, paperwork, transfers, and backlogs can turn a priority target operation into something far wider. Advocates argue that once enforcement ramps up, it inevitably sweeps in the most vulnerable, including kids. Government representatives counter that children are often held temporarily while authorities determine placement, guardianship, or release conditions. But Crockett wasn't satisfied with process explanations. She wanted to talk about impact. What does this look like for the child? She pressed. Not as a statistic, not as a case number, but as a human being, a young person who may not understand why strangers in uniforms took them from familiar surroundings, who might not know when they'll see their parents again, who may carry that fear for years. In that moment, the debate shifted away from policy memos toward lived experience. The officials at the witness table emphasized legal obligations. They spoke of overcrowded facilities, surges at the border, and difficult logistical realities. They said no system is perfect. They said the government is trying to balance compassion with enforcement. But Crockett kept returning to the same principle. If leaders promise to pursue criminals, then actions must reflect that promise. Otherwise, public trust erodes. What made this exchange different was tone. Crockett wasn't delivering a speech for applause. She was interrogating a contradiction, and clips of the confrontation quickly spread online, where viewers divided into familiar camps. Some praised her for defending children. Others accused her of oversimplifying a complex system. But few people ignored it. Immigration remains one of the most explosive issues in American politics. Voters want order. They want safety. But polls also show deep discomfort with images of minors in detention. Lawmakers know this. And Crockett's line of questioning tapped directly into that tension. How do you enforce the law without losing your moral footing outside the Capitol? Immigrant advocates say they regularly meet families who are confused by how they became entangled in enforcement actions. Some say they were following check-in rules. Some say they were seeking asylum. Some say they simply were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Officials dispute parts of those narratives, but the emotional weight remains undeniable. Because a child in custody is not an abstract debate. It's a future. By narrowing her focus to children, Crockett reframed the conversation. She forced a moral comparison. Dangerous criminals versus minors. Threats versus vulnerability. And in politics, framing can be everything. At several points, witnesses paused before answering, not necessarily because They lacked information. But because the answer to why are children detained is never simple. It involves court requirements, sponsorship vetting, international law, and capacity limits. Yet complexity can sound like evasion when families are hurting. Crockett understood that. Within hours, the video was everywhere. Supporters called it fearless oversight. Critics called it theater. But immigration lawyers, social workers, and even some former enforcement officials acknowledged that the issue she raised is real and persistent. Children do end up in custody, even under policies designed to avoid exactly that. Can a massive enforcement system ever be precise? Or will mistakes and collateral damage always be part of it? That is the uncomfortable national argument Crockett brought back into view. Crockett has often spoken about fairness and equal treatment under the law. Her questioning reflected that philosophy. If government power is at its strongest when detaining someone, she suggests, then scrutiny should be just as strong, especially when that someone is a child. No immediate policy changed in that hearing room. No dramatic concession was made. But accountability moments are not always about instant results. Sometimes they're about planting a marker, drawing a line the public can evaluate later. Closing reflection. Slower, resonant as the gavel finally moved the session forward, the question lingered. If the priority is criminals, why are children still part of this story? It is a question lawmakers will keep debating, a question agencies will keep defending, and a question families will keep living. For True Story Reports, this is not just politics. It's about what happens when promises meet reality, and whether the nation is willing to look closely at who pays the price. I'm your reporter, bringing you the story behind the headlines.